Thanks everybody for coming tonight, and this is a nice and little intimate conversation. Welcome to our Dawn Network channel, and a wonderful and warm welcome to a wonderful friend, Stephanie Lorenzo, who is the founder of Project Futures and a former CEO of that charity, which I've been corrected, it apparently has raised $1 million annually for the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, in the last couple of years, but overall we've raised over 4.8 million in the last 8 years.
8 years. So she started this 8 years ago, and I just thought, you know, it'd be great to have a conversation with Stephanie to really understand the mindset that you need.
Yep.
And what does it take to really drive a not-for-profit organisation? Because, you know, in this day and age, really, is charity where the money is? It's not. But
it's definitely not. Unfortunately.
But you got you started. Also, the other aspect of this conversation is that at any time, while Stephanie and I talk, you're very welcome to just actually interject.
Yeah.
Don't sit there quietly.
Yeah.
Have a conversation. This is about a conversation like we're having it over a dinner. So you started this after having read a book by Somaly Mam.
Yes.
You know, what really, you know, from reading a book to really setting up a not-for-profit.
Yes.
What was it?
So, well, yeah, just to give everyone a bit of background, because I don't know how much you know about Project Futures. So when I was 21 years old, I basically had finished a Bachelor of International Communication at Macquarie Uni. I thought that I was going to climb the corporate ladder and become like the next Todd Sampson or something like Roxy Jasenko. I wanted to be in that advertising and PR world by the time I turned 30. And I was really hell-bent on that path. And then when I was actually in Cambodia doing a charity cycle for another organisation that my friend worked at, the Muscular Dystrophy Association, and I was there and I picked up a book about a Cambodian woman named Somaly Mam who was sold into the sex trade as a child in Cambodia, and her story just really moved me. It was really very much written in first person about her personal journey through it as a child, about the issues that are current now, and about how she sort of moved past that and had set up 3 safe houses in Cambodia that rescued, rehabilitated and reintegrated women and children who had been born into the sex trade, or had been born and then been sold into the sex trade. And yeah, it just really overwhelmed me, and I was completely moved and shocked and went through all sorts of emotions about this book. And I'd never done anything for charity except when my friend asked me to cycle across Cambodia with her. That was honestly the first time I'd ever done really anything for charity. And even then, it was more Cambodia and cycling through this country that interested me, and the travel, as opposed to the raising money and doing all of that sort of stuff. So I decided when I came back to Australia, because I had just been on this incredible journey, and yes, it was for an Australian charity, it didn't sort of make sense to me because we're in Cambodia and, well, I don't know what the statistics are of people with muscular dystrophy in Cambodia, but it was really learn about the charity, fundraise, and then go on a really fun holiday. There was no sort of direct link to what the charity did in Cambodia, and obviously it didn't do anything in Cambodia. So I came back to Australia and I thought, well, I can sort of do the same thing. I can rally friends around me. We can get a bunch of people, use the same model, organise a bike ride, get the guys that organise this bike ride to do one for us, but we would just do it for a Cambodian charity. And so I gave myself a year. I was working full-time at this point in the sort of private corporate world, and it was just a complete side gig, as many people do when they want to do something for charity. They're not getting paid for it. It's just a fun thing that you do. And then after a year, we had 21 people that signed up on our bike ride. We'd raised $80,000 collectively as a group. And yeah, we went cycling across Cambodia, which was awesome. And we were lucky enough to be able to visit one of the safe houses that we had actually raised money for, which wasn't an expected thing. We didn't sort of plan that ahead. We just kind of went, hey, we just raised $80,000. Like, can we come and visit you to see where this money is actually going to go? And they said yes, and sort of we got connected, and seeing the work firsthand on the ground, meeting girls who were younger than I was at the time, so I was 22 at the time, who are victims of a horrible trade, who have been raped and abused and, you know, horrible situations that you wouldn't wish upon your worst enemy, that really moved me. I didn't expect it to that much. You kind of expect to go, yay, we've done something good, here's the money, and then you go back to your life in Australia. But that just completely overwhelmed me, and it was meant to be one good deed. That's all it was meant to be. I'm going to do this bike ride. We didn't even have a charity set up. Literally, it was, you know, put money into my bank account. Everyone else had money, and then they're like, where do we transfer it to? And I'm like, here, this is the international bank. They gave us all the details and everything, and we made sure it all happened, which was great. But we weren't even to set up a charity at that point, because it was a one-off good deed that Steph Lorenzo was going to do at 22 and then never do it again, or maybe do it when I was 30 or something. But obviously that kind of experience really moves you, and it was really fun organising that first bike ride. And so I thought, well, it can just be a fun side gig that we can do, but maybe create a bit of a brand around it, especially because people in Australia at that time, so this is now sort of 10 years ago, didn't know what human trafficking was, didn't know what sex trafficking was, or just thought it was, you know, something that happens in dark corners of the world and not in the kind of numbers that it's happening today. So that, I guess, was how it started. I could rant on about it for the next hour, but that's how it started.
So then you came back, you've raised that money.
Yes.
Went into a bank. So what then got you from there to then setting up a charity? Because
so March 2009 was when the cycle happened. June 2009 was when we established the actual organisation. We registered it. We did all the things that we did legally to set up a charity. We set up a proper bank account, all of that sort of stuff. We got a board of directors together. And I guess it was the momentum. You sort of have to, I think one of the biggest things is you have to act really quickly, otherwise you'll lose it. You come back and you kind of go, oh, okay, I'm back, like, to my cushy life. But I sort of went through this weird reverse culture shock. Like, I had travelled a lot, like I'm sure many of you have. I was lucky to travel as a young person. I felt like I was really worldly by the time I was 22. But this Cambodia trip was definitely kind of the first time I'd ever gone to an Asian country and actually went into the proper Asian country. Didn't go to like a 5-star resort, didn't go to
tourist. You weren't being a tourist.
All-inclusive packages on Phuket, like beach. Do you know what I mean? Like, you really saw the ruralness and the real country. And I think riding on the back of that, and a couple of my friends who went on that first bike ride, and my sister, we just kind of got together and we said, what are we going to do about this? And we said, well, if we just organise a bike ride every year, maybe we can just do that, but we have to do it properly. I was in my background being marketing and comms. You know, you need to have a brand around something, and brands sell, particularly to young people. Our ethos at the start of it was all about, you know, what's our unique selling point? Why us as a charity? Because there's no shortage of charities in the world, or Australia, trust me on that. So what was our unique selling proposition? And to be honest, our unique selling proposition was young people. We had Gen Ys in all of our collateral. You know, now it's sort of more millennial and young professionals, but it was all about young people leading other young people for an issue that was very hard to find a charity that dealt with it here. So we had a couple of, I guess, advantageous things in that there weren't many charities focusing on sex trafficking, like there really wasn't in Australia. So if you were passionate about it, and you're bound to find people that are passionate about it once you tell them about it, especially if you had a first-hand experience, then there wasn't many other charities in that pot, right? And then the second one was, it was about young people leading young people. We didn't exclude old people. We were just like, yeah, we're Gen Ys, we're for Gen Ys, we're run by Gen Ys. That's who we are. And then that sort of, those two things were unique in our mindset, and then we just created the brand around that.
Do you think that the people that you got involved, the young people, really understood about sex trafficking and human trafficking, or it was really, you know, such a kind of a groovy thing to be on, you know? And
it was a groovy thing to be on. Like, in all honesty, like, I had this mentality when I was 10 years ago, and it's very different now, mind you. People want to showcase the charities that they support. You know, young people want to almost wear it as a badge of honour. 10 years ago, it honestly was not like that. Like, it's changed so much, and that's so good. But for us, it was about come to a party. Like if you look at our YouTube channel and go right back to like 2009, you know, we had these massive parties, we had fun events, and it was for anti-sex trafficking, but we didn't want to make people feel guilty about that. And I think that was the key motivator, because young people didn't want to feel guilted into giving, like maybe we had, you know, growing up seeing those ads from various household name charities where it's very sad.
Yeah.
And that
worked
for our parents. I think that worked actually for our parents, but I don't think it works for that younger generation that don't want to feel guilty. They want to feel part of something. They want to be part of a cool brand. They want to be part of something that matters, but they don't want to guilt people into getting involved. So we had this sort of, we didn't have expectations of our audience. We had expectations of our management team and expectations of our volunteer group, but we didn't have expectations that you come to an event and then you'd have to shell out an extra $500 and then you'd have to feel guilty and buy another couple of raffle tickets, and then we'd show you this photo of this really horrible situation in Cambodia, which you could do something about, but you then kind of, you might have given then, but that would be the last time that you would give. You know, that idea of guilting people was just not part of our mandate.
Yeah, because I think I remember going to one event that you did. I think it was a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and I remember one of the for me was a confronting image, or stark image, was the fact that amazing young people, you know, business people, beautiful in dress, and then there was fundraising for human trafficking,
anti-human trafficking.
So I kind of trying to figure, okay, and it was a really interesting feeling to feel.
Yes.
You know, and
the stark contrast almost. It's like, have fun, anti-sex trafficking. Like, but at the same time, and this is still sort of a hypothesis in my mind, because we've never done a really dark event. We've absolutely shared stories, and we've absolutely, I think, given credibility to the fact that it's such a big issue, but that's not going to stop people. They're almost going to get paralysed and go, really, it's the 3rd largest crime industry worldwide. There's 34 million people enslaved in our world today. Okay, well, what are you going to do about it? You know, you don't feel like you can do anything because it's 34 million people and 2 million children into the sex trade, and these stats are so massive that you almost go into paralysis and go, well, it's actually not part of my world, so that's okay. So we needed a way to make it part of people's worlds without making them feel they were responsible for it, making them feel like they were empowered by it. And honestly, that to us has been such a great way that we've built traction over the years. But interestingly, now that it's getting to be at the point where there's like charities, we're so empowering, and like there's all these different causes, there is now, it's not unique anymore. So what is then the next way that you're going to make it unique? And that is honestly a big issue for many charities that I've talked with, consulted with, from big charities like World Vision to small ones like us. We're technically actually a large charity because we raise over $1 million a year, but small in terms of our size compared to like a Salvos or compared to a World Vision. That's actually the new problem now. It's changed so rapidly, which is great, that it's so empowering to get involved in charity, but then it's not different anymore, you know?
So in terms of how did you, obviously you sat down, well, first of all, how you got your team together, and how did you craft this message? Was it intentional to say, look, it's such a dark trade that there's no way we can get the following if we don't sex it up, if I can put it that way, you know?
But even the sexing up wasn't like the way you think it is. That the way that we made it sexy, or made it appealing to other people, was to showcase young people leading a movement that seemed impossible to lead by young people. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was such a serious issue, and we were all volunteers, mind you, for pretty much the first 4 years of our running. And in that 4 years, so if we've been around 8 years, that first 4 years, I think we raised $1 million, and then pretty much the next 4 years it rapidly grew because I came on board as our first full-time person. At our peak, we had 4 full-time people, but everyone was on yearly contracts. And obviously you have to really look at sustainability from a charity point of view as to how you get your money. And 1 year you can have a massive donor, and the next year they can just go like that, just not because you did anything wrong, but just because
they put money somewhere else.
Yeah. So sustainability was a really big factor, but it was very intentional to be specific with our message. But I also think that it's the culture. You can showcase a really serious issue just by having someone that really didn't study it, didn't know anything about it, had a background in marketing and comms that can relate to young people. You can share harrowing figures and stories and make people feel like they can understand the issue, but then they feel empowered to do something. It didn't mean we didn't completely just show happy pictures of happy people. So there was an intentional way we curated our events to make sure that people understood the issue, but we didn't go so far as to make them, I think, feel that they couldn't do anything about it. You know what I mean? And it's tough because human trafficking as an issue is just so multi-layered. There's corporate supply chain, there's lack of opportunity in education, there's gender equality and how women are viewed in Asian countries and others where this happens. So it's not like there are so many facets that allow human trafficking to grow, greed and profit, so there were so many layers and so many tiers that I think one of our biggest strengths was being very specific and intentional about where we were putting our money and supporting these charities over the long term. So we can say we raised $4.8 million, but we haven't supported 400 charities. We're very intentional about supporting the current 4 charities that we support, and then sharing stories and sharing access and sharing milestones, but also challenges as to that. And I think charities need to do that. It's like, okay, you supported this girl. Actually, she's gone back to the brothel because she's got a drug problem and she doesn't want to be in this safe house. That's an actual reality. Not all girls will go into university. To be honest, a majority of the girls in the safe house will find jobs in factories, as in a grocery store. A small percentage will go into university because they've been sold at a young age. Do you know what I mean? People have to understand that, but sometimes the Western point of view is, they need to go into school, they need to do this. Have you ever asked that girl what she wants to do? Many of them in Asia, and many of them, they want to be mothers. They want to get married, and they never think they're going to get married again. That's some of their biggest issues. So I think we have to be very intentional about working with our partners because these issues are they're just so multifaceted. It'd be easy for us to say, we raised $4.8 million and we supported 400 charities. It makes you sound good, and sometimes corporates do this. They don't actually understand their impact because they chop and change every year. They don't see through an issue, and I think that is unfortunate. And I think the more people understand the charity world and understand all of the factors that are at play to make these issues what they are, the better we will be once we focus on them and not just focus on stats,
But I mean,
can I ask a question?
Yes.
Being so young, with the challenges that you face and the levels of complexity of the issue, how
Yes.
did you navigate through? I'm just rewinding back to that
Yes.
time. I
How
just
did we
finished uni.
advocate?
I'm just I'm just starting my own life. I had no idea. I wouldn't even know how to work through those things.
So to be our first partner, was AFICEP Cambodia, which was started by Somaly Mam. They had 3 safe houses in Cambodia. She, as an individual, was amazing. So, I never pretended that I was something that I wasn't. For example, I'm not a human trafficking expert. I didn't study it. I've got no idea about policies and procedures and stuff around that. So we made a good match because her and her staff, who were all Cambodian, knew, and then we were really great at actually bringing the fundraising in. And so we working together like that and creating a great partnership like that, just being very transparent and open like that, I think was really good. If there was anyone that was just such a good, mentor in that space to help you understand, that was awesome. And then we could grow and develop based on that.
But I think to Isabella's point though.
Yes.
If you're just starting uni, like the 21-year-olds that we find nowadays, you travel to Cambodia.
Yeah.
I mean, travel or third world country. You come back. There's been an issue. I mean, how do you
How do you start?
Oh, I want to set up a charity. I want to run fundraise. That's in itself is quite overwhelming.
Yes.
Then how do you go about fundraising? I mean, who are you going to contact? How are you going to sell the tickets, and who are you going to talk to? Like, do you know what I mean?
So I think one of my biggest strengths, at least one of something that everyone says, which I have to agree with, and I'm always happy to showcase my strengths as well as my weaknesses, but networking is such a lost art form these days. Like, the amount of people I contacted, using my age as an advantage, not a disadvantage, people will give you the time of day. They actually will, but there has to be like, it has to be planned. It has to be sort of well thought out, because if you're going to like use up someone's time, they don't want to see it wasted. So if you're going to ask someone, how do I do this? It's like, you clearly haven't started or thought about it. But if it's like, I mean, sometimes it's also just common sense, like realistic. Like, I didn't know how to start up a charity at all, but then I thought, okay, what do you need to do? Just this is an example, right? It's like, what do I need to do to start up a charity? How does that admin work? You know, Googling how to start a charity. Okay, there's the ACNC, there's ASIC. It's actually, you can find this stuff, but I feel like, and I don't want to say millennials because I'm a millennial, like sometimes people want the instant gratification now, and that's why even in the amount of time that we've had volunteers with Project Futures, like, it sort of pisses me off, because they're like, I want to support you, I want to help you, and then it's like, okay, can you do this? I don't want to do that. And it's like, okay, you can't stuff envelopes with us, like you can't put data, you know, like as a startup you have to be nimble, and you have to really, you know, utilize what your skills are. Anyone can fundraise, and I mean that like so wholeheartedly. And fundraising doesn't mean you have to have a big, hairy, audacious goal. It might mean you can fundraise $500 at a bake sale or something like that. Project Future's ethos was, if you can get 50 people to organise a $500 bake sale or whatever, which is which many people are very capable of, multiply that. Do you know what I mean? Make the goals tangible and easy. Make people realise that they can hit it, and then you 100% can get there. I think the problem that people have is they see on the project that some kid has raised $30,000 in a week, and they think that that's fundraising, and that's great, but it's every little bit really does count. And Project Futures is a prime example of that. We've had sort of maybe a handful of really big donations in our life. The biggest one was 250 grand, which was epic. After one meeting that I had, and I was like, what? Amazing. That doesn't happen all the time. But that we had built up this network of people that were willing to go and run City to Surf for us and raise $300. But if you get 100 people doing that, that's, I hope the maths is right, $30,000. Do you know what I mean? Like,
so how did you build that network? Is that because it's already existed for you with what you've done and your family, your friends?
It definitely was friends, I would say. My fam was like, what are you doing? Get back into like marketing and comms work. Come on, Asian people get
earn
good money. What are you doing? So, you know, like, it really was friends, and I probably was a little bit of an annoying friend at the start, because it was like, hey, come to my event, hey, donate $10 to this. Because so many of my friends, and again, the times have changed, because so many of our friends didn't support charities, or they didn't unless they were asked. Now you get asked all the time, and I feel like I have to donate that $10 to someone running City to Surf, which I hate now, but I have to do it because, you know, it's happened to me like 10 times over. But I think that if you've never done anything like this, it's actually much easier for you to get people on board. But you have to be intentional about it. You have to showcase why. Someone's not going to give you $50 no matter how good a friend you are if you can't articulate why you're doing it. Is it just to raise funds? No, it's not. Like, why are you passionate about mental health? Why are you passionate about homelessness? What is the story behind it? And even one of our revenue lines is speaking engagement. So we speak, into small groups like this, or like really big groups or schools. And that was only really a revenue line in the last couple of years, because I used to just go out all the time. I loved it, and you could share your story. But 100%, like, what got to people was how you began and why you're so passionate about it, because people want to connect with a story. People want to connect with why, because that's so easy. Anyone can do it. Not everyone has marketing and comm skills, but everyone can be impassioned to support something, or to, you know, anyone can actually be impassioned to start something, but you need to know it's not going to happen overnight. You know what I mean?
And how did you form your team? Please ask questions we need. Like, you know, the first 4 years was on volunteers, and I've got wonderful volunteers here.
Totally, yes.
You know.
Yes.
And
how did the team form?
How did the team form, and how long did they stay? Did they stay with you from the beginning to the end?
Yes. So it actually was like my group of friends from like school. First off, to be completely honest with you, like, and I was lucky that their skills were very diverse. So we had a management team of 10 people. Out of those 10, I knew 8 really well. They were my good friends at school: web design, photography, other stuff. 2 of them, one of them I just met at a LexisNexis, was our first corporate sponsor that came on board for 15 grand, like in the 3rd year of our organisation, and that was awesome, because I was like, oh my god, like I've got to check $15,000. I had to go on my lunch break to go to this meeting with the CEO of LexisNexis. It was awesome. And then I met this girl who was in their marketing team at an event that we did in conjunction with LexisNexis. And I just liked her, and I said, do you want to join our marketing team? We're still really good friends. She's been involved ever since the beginning. We don't have the same management team, but really we called ourselves this management team, because I also think it's okay to give people roles, to give people ownership. You know, we got the photographer to take photos of us and put up bios on our website about our management team. Like, it just looks so much more professional. Do you know what I mean? And we wrote funny bios about ourselves, like, Steph's such an Energizer bunny. Like, it was quite quirky. Yeah. And before that sort of, now that's everywhere. But that was kind of quirky 10 years ago. Like, no one, you know, it wasn't like super professional. It was like, Steph's an Energizer bunny that loves Beyonce and like has killer dance moves. Yeah. And she's also done a Bachelor of International, you know what I mean? And then the other guy, and this is a great way to fake it till you make it, and that was definitely our motto in the first 3 years. I wrote a job description because we wanted a great brand. Like, we wanted a great logo, we wanted a great stuff. I had one guy who's still one of my bestest friends today, who now has a design company, owns his own design company, that did a lot of our animations and stuff, but we wanted Project Futures as a name to have a great brand. So I wrote a job description and made it look really cool, and I sort of was like, we are the next generation charity run by Gen Y for Gen Y. Like, it was so BS, but I was like, this needs to sound good. Sent it to all the design schools and said, you know, come and meet our management team. One of the guys worked at ANZ in Martin Place. I was like, can you hire us a boardroom? Yeah, hired us a boardroom. Hire us a boardroom for 6 p.m. on the 28th. You know, we need a cool design, you know, the name is Project Futures, like, I wrote a brief. I never knew how to write a brief. I was just like, this is exactly what we need. We want templates and letterheads. You will be like the design person of this next generation charity, whatever. Sent it out to Billy Blue and all the different UTS design and stuff, just to see who would like respond. I was working at Australian Catholic University in North Sydney on a marketing contract there, and I got all these responses, and I was like, from Billy Blue, which was just across the road. So I was like, okay, we're going to do a group interview on Thursday at this cafe downstairs. So I had to go on my lunch break to do this group interview at a cafe. And these students came, which was awesome. There was a couple of students that came, and I was like, hey, this is who we are, this is what we're doing. Like, bring your portfolio of designs and pitch it to our management team on this day. You have 2 weeks. And they're like, okay. So then out of like the 5 students that came, 2 ended up rocking up, because students can be unreliable. Went up to the level 36 of ANZ boardroom. We're all sitting there in these swirly chairs and, like, you know, looking, you know, the guys are in their suits, this management team, which were just friends of ours. And they fully pitched the most amazing stuff. Pearly ended up coming on board as just a designer for us, because she's like, I really need stuff for my portfolio. So she ended up actually designing the first Stella Fella logo.
But the brief, did you have to say, oh, this is this is how much you're going to get, or you just say this is the brief?
It was free. It was for work. I was like, we're all volunteers, so you can do it. And I guess that's probably why some people pulled out, and that's fine. And then Andrew Harusa, who I went to his wedding like the last couple of weeks, ended up coming on our management team. He had the best designs. It was sort of like a competition, but we kept Pearly on board, and I spoke to her, you know, she designed our Stella Fella logo and stuff, but Andrew created this whole, you know, design kit, brand, letterheads, business cards. It was so professional, and we were like, we love that. Like, can we make a few tweaks to here and there? And then that's how our brand is still the same today. And he came on board on our management team, and we just all became really, really good friends. And yeah, I went to his wedding like a couple of weeks ago, so we still keep in contact. But that's from nothing. I didn't know any of these guys from a bar of soap, but he laughed a couple of weeks after, when he kind of was like, "So are you guys like?" Yeah. And we're like, "Yeah, we just sort of had a bit of a play with you, but it worked." But he loved it, and you know, he got a job because nobody would give them work that actually was for a real life organisation. We had a website, we had everything. Like, perception was everything. People still think we have so many more stuff than we actually do. But that's just an example. I did go to my network first off, because it's very rare that anyone's going to give like a lot of money or even a little bit of money to either a cause they don't know or a person they don't know. Many people get to a charity because their friends have told them about it, or someone has told them about it, or they've been moved by a talk or whatever, or something on TV. And with us, we just sort of really utilised our network. Our first event was a party at Crystal Bar in Martin Place, and I got 40 friends and these are just from school, these are from uni, very random bunch. I was like, "Can you guys bring 10 friends to this party? It's like $40 entry, and you get a free drink, and there's a band and a DJ that were friends of ours, friends of friends. You have to be okay with asking." I didn't know many of these people, but just bring your friends of friends. And then we had 300, I think 10 people at that first party. So yeah, there's going to be drop off, but people are going to bring people. And yeah, that's sort of how, you know, you got to mobilise a network.
So the first 4 years, focusing on before the funds came through,
yes,
and all the volunteers,
yes,
were there moments when you thought, "Oh my God, this is so hard," and all of this?
Hell yes.
Of course, but,
oh my God.
but you want to kind of give up and think, all my friends are giving their time, and this is just too much. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah, 100%. And I was working full time at the time, in those times as well. But you have to ride on the momentum. I think if you don't ride on the momentum of what you're doing, it's most likely to crumble or take a break, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But we just went event after event after event. We didn't have a big strategy. We didn't have like what we have now, which is like, you know, a really cool like strategy document of what we're actually really doing. At the start, it was event after event after event, because our whole mandate was raise funds for these projects. That was it. And the events were great. And I think when we had this, we just had this just gung-ho attitude of like, we have to make it work. And it's stressful because selling tickets or doing something like that, chicken before the egg, when you get a corporate partner on board, like LexisNexis, you can't then promise a 100-person event and then have 50 people because your credibility is going to be shot. So you just have to have an attitude of, I'm going to make it work no matter what. And there's honestly no other way. And if it doesn't work, then at least you've tried your best, but you can't let the fear of it not happening stop you from doing it. And we had some complete blunders as well. We had this event in Bondi. Oh, it was so bad. Even our photographer forgot to bring film. We still had film. And I was like, just pretend to take photos of people. And then people kept asking me after, where are the photos? I'm like, oh yeah, he's going to have them up. I'm like, they'll forget. No, nobody forgets a photo at a bloody nightclub. And so anyway, I just had to come clean and just be like, he forgot the film. It's not my fault, sorry. But that event was so bad. But at the end of the day, we'd had enough under our belt to sort of make it work. You can't have many of them. I would have pulled the pin on that if I'd known and just refunded people tickets. But that was probably the first blunder. It was like in the third year, and we just had too many events happening, and then it just didn't happen. But it wasn't enough to ruin our reputation, because we had years of experience and we had fun. We still had fun people. It just wasn't. We didn't raise as much as we wanted to, and it just wasn't like others. So we definitely made mistakes, for sure.
So were there moments then that as you said, you were working full time and doing this on the side?
Yes.
When did
I
step out of your full time work and say, that's it, I'm going to give this 100%?
Yes. So our board actually said to me, and our board were just actually like more friends' parents and stuff, like, because you can't have really a board with your friends, because you need responsible people. There's a certain criteria around board responsibility and the type of people you need. So I didn't really actually know them. One was my ex-director of UTS, who I just happened to put a book in her mailbox, and I said, I just want to talk to you about this. And she read the book. She's like, come and talk to me. I'd met this woman like twice in my life, one when I interviewed, and then one at a conference where I heard her speak. I didn't know her from a bar of soap, and she wasn't even my direct boss's 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 boss. But yeah, she came on board because I just said, this is what we've done, this is our track record to date, like, get on board, and she did. And then the rest was, one was an accountant, one was a lawyer, one was an investment banker, and they were arm's length. They were a friend of a friend who sort of thought, you might need this skill set. And what was the question?
When you step from full-time.
Oh, and yeah, sorry. And then they obviously, looking at the finances and stuff like that, was like, you could actually work full-time if you wanted. We would support you in getting a salary from this. I think at that time we raised only $500,000 in like 1 year. So they said, you can take a salary. And I'm like, yeah, but weirdly, I was probably more not interested, just because there is that feeling of, I know I'm never going to get paid as much as I would get paid in a for-profit world. I love it, but how long can you then do that for? So I said no, and then at the end of the year, I sort of got advice from people, and I was scared because we had said 100% of your money goes to the projects, and that's what everyone seems to want with charity, which is ridiculous, but I'll talk about that later, and not sustainable. But I was nervous because at every event it's like, we're all volunteer, we're all young people just doing this because we love it. Support us. And obviously that camaraderie, of course they'd want you to. If I was like, hey, I'm getting paid even $50,000, some people just have a bad taste in their mouth about that, which is stupid and annoying, and I just don't think anyone should ever ask that question. But I said, okay, I'll do it. I went back to pretty much a grad salary because I didn't know how much I was meant to get paid, and our board sort of didn't either. They were all executive people. So I got paid a really crap salary for 3 days a week of work, and I worked 2 days a week at UTS, supplementing that. And we did that for a year, and our revenue doubled. And then they said, we're going to take you on full time. And at that point, I feel like everything happens for a reason. We had this person that emailed me and said, hey, I've seen the work that you've done. I'd love to help you out. I'm like, who are you? And she's like, here's my resume. And she's retired CBA GM of like back in the day. Worked with boards, worked with everything, was like retired at 45, and said, I think that this is awesome. I'd love to meet you. We met, got along like a house on fire, and she's literally been by my side ever since. And she's the one that basically said, you're worth this, you're worth, she just got my head into that confidence, you know what I mean? She just got my focus in. She helped me actually do the full-on forecasting and planning, which we didn't really do. We did it per event as opposed to the year. She was like, you just need a goal to get to, and she's like, I know you'll get to it. And then the year that she came on, I went full-time, and she came on as a volunteer, and she's always been a volunteer. She's never been paid with Project Futures. I asked her to be on the board. She's like, no, I'd rather help you, to be honest. I don't want the politics of the board. And I was like, that's actually a good answer. And then we raised $1 million that year. Actually, me working by myself full-time, we raised $888,000, and then the next year we took on a full-time person. We raised over $1.1 million. And she's like, you can do this. And we were still on lesser salaries than what we would have normally got, but we were passionate about it. I'm not saying that should be the reason, and that's a totally another thing, and I get frustrated about that side where people really don't understand what a charity should be. They should run like a business if they want to be sustainable at certain times in their lives. But I think the board's support helped me to do that, because I certainly wouldn't have done it on my own. I would have wanted to, but I wouldn't have known how. Right, it almost felt like a bit of I would have felt bad about it, and I did feel bad about it for a long time. So, yeah.
Question?
I have a question actually. So basically, with you saying the charity people know people, or you need to drop some names, or having some sort of sponsorship, like how do you balance that sort of? I don't know if conflict is the right word. It's a bit too strong, I think.
Yes.
But sort of like that PR, but having a good cause, because they still sort of want to promote and then plug their name, saying they do a good cause.
I'm
but
all
then
for that.
You have deliverables. Like you have
So
right?
and I guess using my marketing background, we were all for that. We weren't, our proposition to a corporate was never, give us money because we're really good, this is a good cause and you'll save children. Never our proposition. Our proposition was, this is our database. We have a young professional database of, I think back at that time it was like a 5,000. We're a locally run charity. This is the cause that we're supporting, which you absolutely can make people feel wanted to support, like share stories, share the goals. But we have a young professional network. You guys need engagement on your level from a corporate point of view. You have young professionals who work with you. Let us engage them. Let us show you that you're a company that cares. Let us help you formalise your corporate social responsibility strategy. That was almost part of our sponsorship or part of our packaging around how we support corporates. And it differed from corporate to corporate. So that didn't work for all corporates. Some corporates don't care. Some corporates just want to give you money, and that's fine too. But most of the corporates that have been on board for like 3 years or more, Konica Minolta, Air Road Group, very random companies that you wouldn't think of, Worldwide Printing Solutions, Liverpool Partners, a lot of them wanted to engage their staff. A lot of them saw the value in supporting causes coherently and intentionally and properly for the support and the engagement of their staff, as well as the goodwill of the fact that they're earning profits. Do you know what I mean? And I think our proposition around that and our ability to be able to run a really great event sponsored by, show them deliverables around, even a deliverable around, you know, a movie night, which is maybe 150 people, and getting the CEO of Konica Minolta to stand up and talk about why Konica Minolta supports this. Not necessarily plug their brand, but just we're actually really intentional about why we support these guys, and this is why. We organised immersion trips for companies and staff within companies, and we've had Konica Minolta's done, they've been out by far our most amazing partner. They had no CSR sort of landscape before we came into the picture. And I do think the CEO or the managing director at the time, who's currently now on our board, had an affiliation to the cause. Like, he has daughters, he's like, far out, this is such a full-on issue. It has nothing to do with the printing industry, but I want to support this. And then he rallied his company behind it. And that support from a leadership perspective is a huge win for a company. So if you can get to the top and you can have a top-down approach, great. But we also get into the company through entrepreneurs and people that just want to you know, they don't maybe have the ability to sign off a $20,000 donation, but they had the ability to rally their level, their area, their own direct boss, and we would run events in conjunction with them. We've done a lot in Westpac, for example. We've never met the CEO of Westpac, but we've done heaps of events within teams at Westpac through an entrepreneur like, you know, might be you, who go in and go, I really want to do this. These guys have a great proposition about an event we can do, you know, around sustainability or whatever, and we help run those. So we actually look at what the corporate wants. We always look at what it sounds horrible, but in order to be sustainable, you can't think like a charity in that this is a really sad topic, so donate to us, because then you just donate to anyone, you know, to feel compelled by their cause. There has to be a reason, and there has to be something that the company gets out of it, even if it's altruistic, which is still some companies are happy to just not get anything out of it and give. But I think the long-term sustainability of that charity supporting you is much better if you're kind of embedded within their business, within their goals, within their strategy. And that's what we try and do. It's very hard, but that's what we try and do. Yeah.
You talk a lot about sustainability.
Yes.
For a charity, I mean, we had this conversation before. What does that mean to be sustainable? Is it, you know, to have profits and to, you know, grow it and to have lots of money?
Not really. I mean, a charity is a charity first and foremost because of the work that it does and the impact it creates, not about how many staff they have, not about how much necessarily revenue they come in. If you are a charity, and there are many charities, if you look at stats in Australia, there's something like 60,000 registered charities and not-for-profits. The majority of them raise less than $250,000 a year. And out of that small pocket, there's even less that earn less than $50,000 a year. So they could be sustainable because they could be run as a local sporting group or whatever. Sustainability means whatever you want it to mean. Some have big, hairy, audacious goals of, global dominance or something like that, which is great. But you have to be, in order to be sustainable in that, you have to be able to not just raise the money, but showcase the impact. Because if you cannot showcase the impact, there is no way that people are going to support you. For us, because we're sort of a bit of a interesting model in that we raise the funds and support projects, so we're a sort of partnership model in that sense. We're very open about not running a safe house. We don't do that, but we support these safe houses to be run, and if anything, we're like their marketing arm. And people actually like that when we explain it to them that way, because we're not doubling up. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We're not good at that. That's not what we're good at. All of our staff are marketing people, they're partnerships, they're events, they have strategy background, their brand. They're not legal, they're not policy makers, they're not counsellors, right? But we work in partnership with that. So it actually works really well. If anything, that shows a resource share as opposed to a double up, if you know what I mean. I think sustainability means that if you can create a plan, it doesn't have to be a 50-page report, but if you can create a one-pager on, these are our deliverables. Actually, let me go back. We have two documents that are absolutely necessary now that we have staff. You have a strategy, usually for a small organisation, it's maybe 3 years, maybe 5 years, but I would say 3 years for an organisation like us. A 3-year sort of big picture, high level. What do you want to do? Okay, we want to create influencers around Australia. We want to take on X amount of schools. So they're the bigger goals that you want to reach in 3 years. And then every year we do a business plan. So what are we going to do in this year? And what's the revenue what revenue is going to come in? Because that's absolutely part of it. Your board has to approve that. You have to be able to hit those targets. But then how is that going to be spent, and what is our, why? Why is that person working for you? Yes, to raise money, but then what is that money going towards? And some people forget that as they get bigger. I have to admit, I certainly forgot that because I was so nervous about the numbers. Everyone's so nervous about the numbers because they're paying your salary, and they're paying not just my salary. I don't care if I'm not going to get paid, but I've got a staff member that needs to get paid, and you know what I mean? So you need to be able to absolutely work on the numbers, but at the same time, you need to be able to articulate your impact. And I think that making sure as a charity that you have those two things really critical and set in stone is the way that you're going to engage your audience for the long term. Certainly get companies on board if you can articulate why you need the money, why that staff member is important, and then what impact that money is going to have overall.
Linking to that, I'm just wondering, have any actually kind of question why they should, I guess, donate through you guys into the end goal?
Heaps of people do.
Doing it directly, because certainly there's a cost for doing it through.
You know what? Heaps of people do, and you know what I say to them? Donate directly. You can absolutely do that. For us, it's about building relationships, but then, and this has happened many times, which I love, because they're expecting me to kind of beg and go because we're so whatever, and we do play a role. Some companies have done that. Very little have done that because they'll go to the charity, and the charity will say, we have the most amazing relationship with Project Futures. They help us become sustainable because we know we're getting funding off them, but we can't give you the relationship that you want. So you know what ends up happening with charities, particularly charities where say someone runs a safe house, because that's what they know how to do, and they know rehabilitation, they know process around that, they know child protection, they know all of that. Those people, if they're working on their own, they get sucked into fundraising because guess what? They need to pay their staff and themselves. So they're crap at fundraising, and they're going against someone like us who are going to give them the money anyway. Yes, we have to be sustainable on our own, but at the same time, if we get to that point and we can support these guys, then why not? Does that make sense? So
they're outsourcing the advertising.
They're outsourcing, and we don't charge our charities. So our charities. So I think we've given something like $3 million to our charity partners over the years, and only our 4. And we create an impact report every year. We do these progress reports every 2 months now. But when you ask them who their best partner is, guarantee you it's us, because you know what? We expect reporting, and we work with them on that, but that's just part and parcel. It's not like why haven't you given this report at this time? Like, we really do understand the work that they do. We're almost an extra level of marketing for them, and we don't charge them. So none of the charities that we fund like pay us to do it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. We work on that partnership basis. But when people ask me that, I say to them, absolutely, you can do that. Go for it. And you will 100% have our support. But if you want to engage your staff, if you want to build a relationship, it's much easier to do it with us than do it with them, because they don't know how to do that well. Yeah, and it's worked very much. And some people have done that directly through, and we say, go for it. Yeah. There's a big pot of people that, like, the pot's big enough, you know what I mean? Yeah. So.
Sorry, I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm very new to this charity, and I guess I don't know what the difference between a not-for-profit
and a charity is.
And a charity is.
To be honest, I don't either. Like, I think they're actually the same. I have a feeling, so we're DGR, we've got deductible gift recipient status. Yeah, but some not-for-profits are still that. I don't know whether you, all of a sudden called charities if you have DGR, is that right?
No, we're all charities.
We're all charities.
One is the DGR status, which is such as yours.
Is us, yep.
Ours is not DGR status,
yep.
but it's still a charity. In
That's
a sense,
right.
it's a not-for-profit. So not-for-profit means it's charities.
Yeah, they pretty much mean the same thing.
Yeah. So one is you can get tax deduction through the DGR status.
That's right.
The other one you can claim as a business expense.
That's exactly right.
And probably the claim.
It's more a legal thing.
More legal and monetary thing between charity, between DGR as well as non-DGR status.
All charities are not-for-profits.
Yeah.
Because the mandate is that you don't make profit. And I hate that as well. From a marketing perspective, I hate that, because you actually do make profit, you just don't profit yourself.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's an annoying term.
Doesn't go to stakeholders.
Correct. Yeah. It's an annoying
I think there should be a new term, which is a social enterprise, because it is, isn't it?
Well, social enterprise is out there. I think social enterprise also confuses people, because social enterprise, could you call Konica Minolta a social enterprise? Because they have a great and working and large CSR area. I think it confuses. At the end of the day, what you really want is all business to be social in some respect. I think what everyone grapples with is how social can you be? I think in Norway or whatever, there's a mandate that like 10% of your profit has to go to charity, and that's the way that they showcase it from a revenue standpoint. So I think that's some sort of mandate. Whether or not you bring that in, I don't see that ever coming into Australia as being a mandated thing, because it's kind of like, oh, your democracy is, you should choose where your stuff goes. But I think what you want to strive for is every business to have some sort of social impact. The hard thing is, social impact is so broad. Diversity could be a big one, as opposed, would people consider diversity and flexible working hours charitable, versus actual companies giving money to charity? So, we live in a democracy and we live in a capitalist society, so you should be able to put your money where you want to put your money. But it's everyone's throwing around these terms, social enterprise and stuff, which is great that it's there, but I still think that there needs to be some sort of legality around it, so there can be a benchmark that you set.
So in doing all of this, we've got about 5 minutes left, guys.
Already?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking, really? That's quick. Well, it's an hour conversation.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
And then people have a kind of opportunity to chat with you.
An informed chat.
Running a charity, it takes a lot of energy, your personal life.
Yeah.
How did you for me, running Dawn is constantly on the move, hustling, meeting people, hustling, getting events, hustling. It doesn't seem to stop.
Yeah, it doesn't stop.
Does it stop for you? Was there a moment when it stopped?
And I think running a business, friends that run businesses, small businesses, it is that you think about it all the time, and that is honestly so true. You think about it all the time. I think about it all the time. I don't anymore, because I've resigned and I stepped away as CEO, but you think about it all the time, and it doesn't stop. And you think about, it sounds horrible, but you do think about, when you meet someone, you think, what can they do for me? In the best of ways. I honestly thought that way for a long time. And not in a bad way, because I would do something for them, but like I would always want to do something for them. Like it wasn't just about us, but I would honestly think that. The first thing I would think was, oh wow, you're the event person at establishment. Awesome. And then I become friends with them and then just be like, by the way, do you know what I do? Like, honestly, I know that sounds really horrible, but I thought that way. And all my friends will laugh at me because at least I'm telling you the truth. You do think about it all the bloody time. And I recently stepped down, so I resigned in October last year, and then we transitioned out. My last day was March this year, and we took on a new CEO who's wonderful, to hopefully get it to that next stage. A good friend of mine said in order to start something and scale something, it takes very different mindsets and usually very different personalities. It's a very rare person that can do both. And I was like, whatever, I can do both, like shut up. But, after trying that big picture strategy, I'd never even done it before. Do you know what I mean? So you kind of get it to this level and you want to be able to see it grow. And there's only so much you can do at the skill set that you have. And I think I probably realised that a year too late, but at the same time, it's hard to let go of something. And with reflection now, so I've had four or something months off. God, it's been the best thing ever. And you don't know if it's going to work. I still don't know if this new CEO is going to work out. I think she's phenomenal, and I'm there for her when she needs me. But you honestly don't know if it's going to work out. You don't know if it's going to work out with you there. You've got no idea. But I think my letting go of it and admitting it was the realization that it's okay. Like I wasn't as passionate as I was about it once, and I'm still passionate, but I don't want to think about it 24/7 anymore. And that's okay. And I think many founders get to that sometimes too late. So I'm glad that I didn't get to it.
So did you go in, when you started kind of working full-time there,
Yes.
Did you start to plan for your exit strategy?
Do you know what? No. And it was on every single board meeting agenda where our board said you have to really think about this. But our board was also voluntary, and they were very high level sort of executive people. And to be honest, Project Futures as a brand was very interlinked with my personal brand. Not intentionally, but that's just what happened. It was actually not an intentional strategy for us. It just is what happened. And so I think the board was really nervous that would be really bad, but then they also realised that they needed someone that had a bit more experience to really move it forward. And that hurt, and I was like, why can't I do it? But realistically, you sometimes just have to let your ego and pride go and say, it's not like you let your ego and pride go, and sometimes you can see so much more light at the end of the tunnel than just continue to try when you know that your heart probably isn't in it the same way it was 8 years ago. And that was hard to admit. Then I finally admitted it. And then that plan happened. The exit plan should happen much earlier. If there was one thing I'd tell any founder now, would be your exit plan should always be something that's a constant that you do with your board, always. Even if it's just a constant board point. But people don't do it enough. They're afraid to hurt people's feelings. They're afraid to, there was a lot of stuff I feel like my board members didn't say to me that could have been said earlier. But for all different reasons, like, ego and you started it and, wanting to sort of support you, but then maybe realising you're not the right one. Just like it might be when you realise a volunteer or a management team member or a board member is past their use-by date. It happens. You just have to have that hard conversation, and sometimes those hard conversations don't work out the best, but they need to happen if you want the organisation to thrive. Yeah. So
we can continue, but
Sorry, yes.
I think we have one last question.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
So I like how you brought up the personal branding factor. So
Yes.
if you were to do this again, would you still approach it the same way, or would you remove yourself?
Do you know what? It's really hard. People have asked me this before. I do really believe that a lot of the traction of Project Futures was because I was so involved. Like, I honestly went to meetings. I really didn't stop, and many of our friends can attest to that. I didn't stop for so long, and you are the face.
Just to interrupt a little bit,
Yeah.
You connected with me on LinkedIn about 8 years ago.
Did
because
I?
of Project Futures.
Oh,
And I
really?
remember that time I still haven't used LinkedIn properly, and I was like,
Yeah.
what's this? But I know about Project Futures,
Yes.
profile.
Yes.
So you really did try.
And I think, and I think I did sort of, it wasn't intentional to do it, but I loved just sharing the story of Project Futures. I never thought, like as I said, we got someone on board, and they said you could actually charge for your speaking as a donation to Project Futures as a revenue line. So we didn't start doing that till 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, and that was awesome. But that was just part and parcel of what we did all the time. And I do think being a bit of an extroverted person and being someone that's not afraid to have an honest conversation or a transparent conversation and being able to give the time helped the brand get propelled and helped that momentum happen. That's a hard one. I think it depends on the person. I think it really depends on the person if you want to do it intentionally. I think for Project Futures it worked. I couldn't tell you whether it would work for every brand. To be quite honest with you, I couldn't say. I think it depends on the person, and it depends on their plan. When I started Project Futures, did I ever think I'd work full time in it? Honestly, no, that wasn't the plan. But as you grow and as you start to evolve and things change and you see things, I think, maybe would I have been more intentional about it? Would we have charged earlier, because that's how we got the message out, because I was invited to so many things and I would take up so many of those things. I would pay for myself to go to these things just to get the message out there. I think it really depends on the person, and it depends on the organisation and what that person wants out of that organisation.
What about you though?
If I looked back,
If you were to do it again?
I wouldn't change it, no. I honestly, and I enjoy speaking to people. I still, at the moment, actually, I still get paid for doing speaking engagements. In the 6 months off, I've been at a few speaking engagements that have paid me personally to speak, which I've really enjoyed and I've loved and I've learned so much from. It's not something I want to do full time, but it's 100% something that I really enjoy. I wouldn't change a thing, no. I'd probably be more intentional about it, and this is actually something, I realised, leaving Project Futures, so now that I've been gone for 4 months, it actually hasn't affected it the way people think it's going to affect it, because the brand itself is strong, and the CEO they took on is strong. And yes, it might take a while for her to speak at an event or whatever, but it will happen. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it actually wasn't as big a fall as, do you know what I mean? In terms of support, as in terms of, it wasn't as big of, yes, we did lose some support. We lost some corporate supporters just because they were personal connections, not because I wanted them to be lost, but because it's their choice. But it didn't affect our overall sort of revenue. Whether or not they raise $1 million this year, I don't know, but certainly the board is not expecting that with the transition of the new CEO. But then year on year, it will grow from there. Does that make sense? Yeah.